Have you ever wondered why you feel like you're performing on an invisible stage, constantly rehearsing lines for an audience that might not even exist? Picture this. Every thought you have, every word you speak, every gesture you make is being evaluated by phantom judges who live rent-free in your mind. You've built an entire reality around their imaginary opinions, shaping yourself into someone you think they want to see. But here's the devastating truth that will shake you to your core. That audience was never real. It was always just you, trapped in a prison of your own making, begging for approval from ghosts. Imagine a dark theater where anonymous spectators take notes on every silence, every hesitation, every moment of vulnerability you display. You believe these watchers exist, calculating your worth based on their applause. You've convinced yourself that your survival depends on their validation. But what if I told you that this entire theater is an elaborate illusion? What if the very foundation of your anxiety is built on a lie so pervasive that questioning it feels like questioning reality itself? This is the mental labyrinth where millions lose themselves daily. The emotional dependence on the gaze of others, that poison disguised as a social need. You wake up each morning and immediately begin the exhausting process of editing yourself, wondering what version of you will be most acceptable today. You curate your words, expressions, and thoughts through the filter of imaginary critics who have somehow become the directors of your life story. What if I told you that the very thing you believe keeps you safe, seeking validation from others, is actually the invisible chain that's been holding you back your entire life? Think about the people you admire most, those who seem to glide through life with effortless magnetism. They don't possess some secret superpower you lack. The difference is profound yet simple. They've broken free from the compulsion to be approved. They've discovered that the moment you stop begging for recognition, you become irresistibly magnetic. The cruel irony is that the harder you try to be liked, the more you dissolve into nothingness. The more you bend yourself to fit others' expectations, the more invisible you become. This is the fundamental law of scarcity. What begs for attention loses its power. What's rare becomes precious. Right now, you're treating your identity like a clearance item, desperate for any buyer willing to notice you. But the price you're paying isn't just your authenticity, it's your entire sense of self. Here's a question that will expose the foundation of your entire existence. If you disappeared from everyone's radar tomorrow, who would you be without the likes, compliments, and approving glances? Do you have an essence that could survive in complete anonymity? Because if that question makes you uncomfortable, if it sends a chill down your spine, then you've just discovered something terrifying. Your entire identity has been built on borrowed approval. This fear isn't even originally yours. It's an evolutionary residue, obsolete programming that survives because you've never had the courage to question it. Your ancestors needed tribal acceptance for physical survival, but you've inherited this programming in a world where social rejection won't kill you. It will only force you to confront who you really are beneath the masks you wear. Carl Jung understood this psychological trap better than anyone. He knew that what we need most is the courage to endure our own solitude without the numbing comfort of others' validation. Jung recognized that most people live their entire lives as projections of what others want them to be, never discovering their authentic selves hidden beneath layers of social conditioning. Your need for approval isn't just a personality quirk, it's a leash that anyone can use to control you. They don't need to threaten you or raise their voice. All they have to do is withdraw their attention and you crumble like a house of cards. Your freedom becomes an illusion as long as you remain emotionally dependent on an audience that owes you nothing. Think about how this dynamic plays out in your daily life. How many times have you changed your opinion because someone seemed disapproving? How often have you silenced your authentic voice to avoid conflict? Each time you do this, you're reinforcing the prison walls that keep you trapped in a life that isn't truly yours. The most successful people in history share one crucial trait. They became indifferent to the judgment of those who never dared to be authentic themselves. While you're burning energy wondering if you're enough for others, they're investing that same energy into perfecting their purpose. They've discovered that magnetism doesn't come from desperate attempts to please everyone, but from the unshakable serenity that emerges when you stop negotiating your worth. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Your hunger for recognition has become the most sophisticated prison ever designed, and the twisted part is that the door was always unlocked. You've been your own jailer, convincing yourself that the bars are real when they're just shadows cast by your fears. The world you've been trying so hard to impress, it wouldn't even notice if you stopped performing tomorrow, and that's not a tragedy. That's liberation waiting to happen. Let me reveal something that will make you question everything you thought you knew about human connection. Your desperate need for approval doesn't just repel the people you want to attract, it becomes a magnet for exactly the wrong kind of attention. When you broadcast your insecurity like a beacon, you're essentially announcing to the world that your judgment isn't trustworthy, that you need others to tell you who you are. The human brain is wired with an ancient obsession for social hierarchy. Thousands of years ago, belonging to the group meant survival. But in today's world, this evolutionary programming has become a trap that keeps you stuck in an exhausting performance that benefits no one. You invest precious energy maintaining a role that doesn't even serve your best interests, all because you're terrified of the silence that would follow if you stopped performing. Here's the devastating price of this endless theater. You lose the ability to be at peace with yourself. The relentless search for external validation steals the only certainty that truly matters, knowing who you are when no one is watching. You become so addicted to the drug of approval that you can't tolerate the quiet moments where you might actually discover what you want, what you believe, what you stand for. Think of your personality as a chess game where each piece represents a different aspect of who you are, your dreams, your values, your dignity. Every time you allow someone else to dictate how you should be, you're handing over control of one of those pieces. Gradually, you're no longer playing your own game. You're just reacting to everyone else's moves, wondering why you never seem to win. The saddest part is that this pattern doesn't just affect your relationships. It infiltrates every area of your life. Your career decisions become about what looks impressive rather than what fulfills you. Your creative expression gets filtered through the lens of what others might think. Even your private thoughts aren't safe from the censorship of imaginary critics. When someone detects your need for approval, they instinctively understand they have power over you. Some people use this knowledge consciously, like predators who have learned to identify emotional vulnerability. They offer you crumbs of recognition, knowing you'll do almost anything to taste that validation again. This is how toxic relationships form, how workplace dynamics become unbalanced. Your constant need for validation creates a feedback loop that reinforces everyone else's insecurity, or your submission validates their fear. Your silence confirms their belief that authenticity is too dangerous to risk. And so a society of appearances perpetuates itself, where everyone is pretending and no one is truly living. The most tragic aspect is that you're not just sacrificing your own authenticity, you're depriving the world of what you could offer if you were brave enough to be yourself. Your unique perspective, your genuine insights remain hidden because you're too busy trying to be what you think others want you to be. Now I want you to consider the most uncomfortable truth of all. Your constant need for validation has become excellent business for others. Social media platforms have built empires on your insecurity, monetizing every second you spend, measuring your worth through digital hearts and thumbs-up reactions. The self-help industry thrives on keeping you convinced that you're not enough, selling you endless formulas for success designed not to liberate you, but to keep you coming back for more. The entire consumer economy depends on you never discovering your capacity for emotional self-sufficiency. The fashion industry sells you the promise that the right clothes will make you acceptable. The beauty industry convinces you that your natural appearance isn't good enough. The lifestyle industry peddles the illusion that if you just buy the right products, you'll finally receive the approval you're seeking. But here's what they don't want you to realize. When you become truly indifferent to external approval, you become uncontrollable. You can't be manipulated by the withdrawal of attention or the promise of recognition. You become someone who can be loved, hated, or ignored, but never dominated. This is the kind of person who changes rooms simply by walking into them, not because they're trying to make an impression, but because authentic presence has a gravitational pull that can't be faked. The freedom you're seeking doesn't arrive when everyone finally recognizes your worth. It emerges when you become capable of living without being recognized at all. This is simultaneously the most terrifying and most liberating possibility you'll ever face. Your ego recoils from this idea because it threatens the very foundation of how you've built your identity. Watch what happens when you don't receive the applause you expected. Don't try to rationalize the discomfort or push it away. Just observe it. Feel the anxiety creeping up your spine when no one confirms you're on the right track. That moment of pure discomfort is where transformation begins, because you're looking your addiction to approval directly in the face. Those who have mastered this art of emotional independence carry themselves differently. They don't need to announce their worth because it radiates from their very being. They don't need to defend their choices because they're not seeking permission to make them. They've discovered that respect isn't something you demand or beg for. It's something that naturally flows toward those who respect themselves enough to live authentically. There's a fascinating psychological principle at work here. The human mind confuses attention with affection, visibility with value. We think that if people are looking at us, they must respect us. But attention alone means nothing. It can be charged with morbid curiosity, comparison, or judgment. Authentic respect is born when someone perceives that you're not willing to sacrifice your essence even for universal attention. The most magnetic people you've ever encountered share one secret. They've stopped existing symbolically for others. Their lives revolve around their genuine purpose rather than the anxiety of being perceived. This isn't a spiritual fantasy. It's a practical reality that most people dismiss because it requires facing inner discomfort that feels overwhelming. But here's the paradox that will change everything. The more you try to please everyone, the more disconnected you become from authentic relationships. You surround yourself with surface-level connections held together by the mutual agreement never to be completely honest. You edit your thoughts before speaking, filter your desires through the lens of acceptability, and slowly erode the most essential part of your being, the ability to feel at home in your own skin. Authenticity is inherently disruptive. It's not comfortable, predictable, or universally welcomed. When you abandon the choreography of approval, your very presence becomes a mirror that disturbs those who are still trapped in the performance. They see in you what they could become if they had the courage to stop pretending. And that reflection can be unbearable for those who've invested everything in maintaining their masks. This is why choosing authenticity means accepting that not everyone will understand you. Some will criticize you for no longer playing the game they need you to play. Others will try to drag you back into the comfortable patterns of mutual validation. But this resistance isn't a sign that you're on the wrong path. It's confirmation that you're threatening the collective illusion that approval is necessary for survival. The great creators throughout history understood this principle. They didn't produce their most significant work while seeking consensus. Da Vinci created in chosen isolation, driven by curiosity rather than public opinion. Beethoven composed symphonies that challenged musical conventions. When these creators emerged with their work, they didn't need applause because their authenticity spoke with a voice so genuine it couldn't be questioned. Those who criticize others the most are usually the ones who have risked the least in their own lives. People who have never dared to live without validation experience intense discomfort when witnessing someone else's freedom. Every authentic step you take becomes a reminder of the invisible cage where they remain imprisoned. The energy that could be invested in creating, exploring, and growing gets consumed by endless calculations of how not to displease others. You become an expert in reading social cues and managing impressions, but you lose touch with your own genuine interests, values, and dreams. You become a master of appearing normal while feeling increasingly disconnected from any sense of purpose. If you've stayed with me this far, something inside you is already stirring. A part of you recognizes the truth in these words, even if another part wants to reject them. This recognition is crucial because it means you're ready to consider the most radical experiment of your life, turning your entire existence into a conscious practice of detachment. Not cold indifference, but conscious freedom from the need to be understood, accepted, or applauded by everyone you meet. When you stop behaving like a reflection of others' expectations, something extraordinary happens. Those who are still trapped in the compulsion to please feel an inner tremor because your freedom reminds them of the prison where they remain. Not everyone can handle this confrontation with their own limitations. Some will label your authenticity as arrogance. Others will try to convince you that caring about others' opinions is just being considerate. But none of these reactions matter if you're clear about the pact you've made with yourself. Here's what they won't tell you about choosing authenticity. It won't always give you a more comfortable life, but it will give you a real one. An existence that doesn't need to be decorated with masks, justified with explanations, or validated by external sources. When you stop needing everyone's approval, your energy multiplies exponentially. You no longer waste it on endless mental calculations about how to avoid disapproval. This decision, though it may seem small, is actually a quiet revolution. Nothing challenges a world obsessed with appearances more than someone who refuses to pretend. Nothing is more subversive than walking without anxiety through the territory of public opinion. Those who master this art become the secret inspiration for others who are still trapped in the performance. The transformation begins with a simple experiment. Imagine walking down a street where no one pays attention to you. No one smiles, no one nods, no one acknowledges your presence. In that apparent emptiness, something profound reveals itself. Your emotional dependence begins to surface like a parasite exposed to light. You feel dizzy, but this discomfort is the prelude to freedom. Because when approval stops being your primary concern, you don't lose something valuable. You recover everything you gave away to be loved. The most extraordinary transformation occurs when you realize that your power, your magnetism, your worth have always been there, buried under layers of fear and conditioning. These qualities were never dependent on external validation. They were always intrinsic to who you are. The moment you stop seeking permission to exist, you begin to access levels of confidence and inner peace that you never knew were possible. If this message has stirred something inside you, if it's forced you to look at yourself without filters, then you're ready to join those of us who have decided to live without chains. Subscribe to this channel because here you won't find empty formulas or promises of instant success. Here there are only uncomfortable questions and truths no one wants to tell you. So give yourself permission to stop asking for permission. The next time you feel that familiar urge to justify who you are, take a deep breath and remember that there is no harsher judge than the part of you that still believes you're not enough. When you release that belief, the rest of the world loses its power to control you. Your authentic life is waiting for you, just beyond the fear of being yourself. Drop a comment below with just these 4 words: I don't ask permission. Let it be our signal that here we are, the ones who have chosen freedom over approval, authenticity over acceptance, and truth over comfort. Because your real life begins the day you decide to stop acting for an audience that was never really there.